Hey there, Les here, Sixus1. Starting out, hopefully, what will be a kind of a ongoing series. I'm hoping to do this weekly. Is just start my week out, throwing open the screen recording software and showing you guys like just whatever we're working on at the moment, and maybe giving you a little behind the scenes with some tips and ideas and things like that on how we do some of the stuff that we do. So. Anyway, just hit the ground running with this thing. This is a new figure we've got coming to our store soon. He's called Kinoko Noka. He's we kind of nicknamed him the Mushroom Farmer. I'll go out to the main view so you can kind of see a more distant shot of him there. Cute guy. He's part of the Miwaku no Mori Enchanted Forest product line we launched recently. So, and what I'm working on today, at the moment, is product images for this little guy. So, I've already finished one pretty extensive scene with him that I like quite a bit, and I was moving in for a facial image of him. So here I've gone to the face camera. In the background you can probably hear Rebecca typing and my son sneezing. That's Killian, which this is one of his character designs, sort of Rebecca's art direction and Killian's design work and everything. So it's kind of cool that we've got, you know, this product line sort of diverges from a lot of the more sci-fi and monster type stuff that we've done through the years, which is kind of my thing, and gets more into kind of Killian and Rebecca's take on sort of these anime fantasy ideas, which are, I don't know, they're really original and kind of whimsical looking, pretty neat. So pardon me. Here we go with this guy's face. So what I'm in the process of doing right now is lighting setup. So I've got one light in the scene right now, which I'm actually going to delete. And just so you can see this, in Poser, under Scripts Utility, you can hit Delete Lights, and it'll actually just kick out all the lights in your scene. So I'm going to start this guy out by doing just a basic 3-point light setup. Go into the top view and go to outline mode. And you can see there's a lot of outlines in there because my scene's pretty expansive with a lot of grass and other stuff like that in it. So let's change this background color so some of the stuff shows up a little better. Then I'm going to bring this light in, set it everything to 0. X, Y, and Z rotate and translate. So now we can see real clearly where our light is. Then I'm going to go back to the face view and just go to smooth shaded mode. I'll hit Z on the keyboard. That switches us to the translate in out tool. We hit T. That switches us to the translate pull tool. We can also use, you know, the dials here, but it depends. If I need to make a really large movement, I'll use the dials, and then I tend to fine-tune things with actual mouse movement. So here, since I started that at 0, I'm able to move this light and keep it focused pretty tightly on our guy here who's at the center of the world. So if you hit R, you'll switch to your rotate tool. So rather than use the light manipulator, I tend to work with the rotate tool and then the two different translation tools. So I've just rotated that light down a bit. I also find setting up lighting kind of makes a little more sense when you're in smooth shaded mode rather than texture mode. So we've got this shot framed up. The first light we've created selected. So Just going to move this thing into place. Get angle set up for it that I'm happy with. Go into my properties, and we're going to change it to ray tracing. Give it a shadow blur radius upwards of 3. Then I'm going to open up the angle, the ending angle on this light as wide as it will go, since we have a full scene behind him. We could tighten that and really focus the light on just him, but I'm going to open it up so that the background elements catch some of that same light. Now, since I've got this light in position close to him where I know it's going to illuminate right in the center of the world, I'm going to go out to my top view, double check just to make sure that my light is within the space where I know that it's not going to be accidentally shooting through a tree or something and casting shadows on it. So I'm just going to make sure that I move that forward a little bit. We'll go back to the face camera and double check, and really no noticeable difference there, which is good. So now we know the light isn't going to accidentally be shooting through anything and casting shadows in places we don't want it. So the next thing I'm going to do is name this. So I'm going to call this my fill. Okay. Then we're going to duplicate that light. Just go to edit and duplicate. Now I'm going to name this one rim. Go back to my top view, back to outline mode. So now I'm going to take my rim light and move it behind him, and then rotate it probably around 180 degrees, maybe not exactly 180. Then we'll switch back to our face camera, and you can see that light now showing over there. And if we move that around, you'll see the edges of the character becoming lit a little bit. So moving it and rotating it at 180 degrees is basically just to get it started. Now that I've moved it to where I can see the edges that it's lighting up a little bit, now I'll grab my rotate tool and rotate that light a little bit more. We can push it back or move it forward to bring up more of the rim lighting on the figure. Then with rim lighting, I also like to push the intensity on it pretty high. We'll push it up to around 200%, because it's really not going to illuminate anything down the main details of the figure. It's not going to, that light's not going to hit the parts of the figure that are showing mostly with the camera, and the light's positioned in a way that it's not going to cast light, or the camera, excuse me, the light is positioned in a way that's not going to cast light into the background that we see. It's just going to hit the background that's off screen. So we can push the intensity of that, and really all that's going to affect is going to be the edges, which is what we want. It's going to make the character jump out from the background quite a bit, and it's going to really help bring out the sculpted details of the character in the scene. So now that we have our rim light set up, since we duplicated it from the fill light, we have the same shadow blur. Everything's the same in there, so that's nice. That works out well for us. So now the next thing I want to do is duplicate that, and I'm going to call this my kicker. And this light is really, this one's going to get dialed down quite a bit. This one's going to be the one that I use for making little details pop and just adding light into areas that maybe I wanted it to get to, but the other two lights just didn't quite hit. So Here you can see I'm directly manipulating it in the scene, and this light's going to stay really tight to the character. So now I'm going to go back through. If I use my up and down arrows, it'll let me arrow through the different lights in the scene, since that's what I had selected. I'll go back to my fill light, and now I'm going to reduce the intensity of that down pretty low, under 50%. The only light that I want to be over 100% would be my rim light. Then I'll take my kicker, I'm going to give it a much tighter angle, and we'll move it over. So now it's really hitting him, and with the tighter angle, it's not going to bleed off into the background as much. So a lot of times I try to keep, with the exception of my rim light, I try to keep the cumulative intensity of my lights to around 100 or slightly below 100, because as they get over 100, you tend to get hot spots in your image, and it'll blow out your textures and make things come out super white. Which, you know, if that's what you're going for, great. But when you're trying to keep details and things intact, you really want to try to keep them right around 100 when everything's added together. Also keep in mind too, you know, that cumulative effect really is for where the lights are hitting with the most impact. So as our kicker trails off, where it has that tighter ending angle, and then the fill light has a broader ending angle, the actual cumulative effect of those out in the distance is going to be very different than it is up close, where they're both hitting with their fullest force. So that brings us to the next step, which is where I'm going to add an ambient light, which Poser doesn't do ambient lighting per se. So what we'll do is we'll add a point light. So come over to our light menu, hit create light. This one I'm going to set to point light, and you'll see suddenly the background gets lit up. Point lights are ray trace only, which is fine. I'm going to increase my shadow blur to something a little higher than the other ones on this, because I want it to be kind of soft. So let's put it up around between 8 and 9. Then I'm going to grab this light with my push-pull tool. Going to move it into the background. Let's go to outline mode, go to the top of our scene. We should be able to see this light. Here it is. Since I'm using an environment that is actually part of this product line, this environment has its own little sky dome with it. You want to make sure that your lights, if you're using a sky dome of any kind, you really want to make sure that your lights stay inside the sky dome. It's very easy when manipulating those lights inside one of the different perspective views in Poser to end up pushing those lights outside of your sky dome and not really even notice that you've done it, because of the way the lighting displays inside Poser. So here we can see we've got our light back inside the trees a bit. So I'm going to bring it to just in front of the trees and just behind the character. That way it's going to illuminate mostly this area. If you can see where my pointer is moving, it's going to illuminate through there and give us kind of the emulation of an ambient light, even though Poser doesn't have those in it. Also going to take a look at it from a front view and make sure that I have this light raised to an appropriate level. So I'm going to set it back down around 10, which is going to be about the character's head since he's up on a little bridge. So if I bring this up higher, then that ambient light, the shadows that it casts, is going to have some of the angle and feel of having sunlight in the scene. Okay. So now we're just going to push and pull this light in and out on the scene so that we can get some idea of how it's going to affect the rest of the lighting that we have set up. We can also affect its distribution right here. So I'm going to set it to have a pretty broad area of effect. But if you notice, that's really not affecting our character here, which is what we want. We want to be able to have our foreground and background lighting kind of separated from each other. So if we want to check it, we can turn the lighting on and off. And you can see how it really only adds a slight little bit to the rim light, which is fine. So now I'm going to pull my camera back just a little bit. I like that this was a nice headshot for the little guy, but I think we could get more of the torso in there. Also going to alter his pose a little bit while I'm at it. Since this is intended for a product shot, it kind of has to bridge this gap between being an art piece and being a catalog type image. And I'll be honest, anyone who hears me talk about this stuff on a regular basis knows how much having to bridge that gap aggravates me, because I'd actually rather be doing art, stuff that I think is a little more artistic with it. But you can find a balance between the two, which is one of the things I'm real happy with on this product line, is that our images kind of strike a good balance with that. So I'm going to give his head a little tilt. Rotate our camera just a touch, so you can see his kua. It's the hoe. Alter his pose just a tiny little bit. Rotate the kua so it shows up a little better. And I think that should do it. So I'm going to pause this and run a test render of it, and be back in just a moment. Okay, so here we see our test render. It's a little on the dark side for what I'm shooting for, so I'll go back to my preview, and I'm going to go to my fill and move that back just a little bit. Going to increase the intensity. Then I'm also going to go to my kicker, move it back just a little tiny bit, and then we will do another test render. Alright, so here you see the that last test render completed, where we changed the lights a little bit, moved things out, really lit up the character a lot more. Oh, there we go. Accidentally hit the accidentally hit the touch strip on my Wacom there for a second, caused that to go sliding. So anyway, so here you see that last test render. You can see, we've got the character lit up, so it really kind of shows the details on him from the front. We've got good shadows, composition of the scene. I'm real happy with it, and we still have the background lit, just not as brightly lit as the character. So this is not final render because it's not at the final size for the product images. Plus, I do all my final renders with these settings, which include having Z depth and then the 3 different customs turned on in the auxiliary render data. What those will do is allow me to save a PSD file that has separated color, shadow, and specularity layers, so that those things can then be composited manually in Photoshop, which really gives you a much greater level of control over the final look of your renders. And since that's something that's offered natively inside Poser now, I try to take advantage of that whenever possible for product images, because the end users have access to that. So now I have access to that, or I've always had access to that because of rendering through different things. But now that the end users have access to that, I'll make use of that as well, so they really get to see just where they could push the artwork to that they do with our figures. So anyway, that brings this first installment to a close, and I hope to be able to do these weekly. Hoping to put up one of these every Monday or Tuesday, depending on what our schedule looks like. As this series gets up and running, you may see different things different times. Just depends on what we're working on. Like right now we're working on the Enchanted Forest product line, which we've got a few more pieces to go in that. So you get to see this guy's, you get a little look at this guy's promotional artwork and the lighting setup. It's just one little look into what's going on with that. We're working on the Apocalypse Girl graphic novel. So at some Monday, if that's what I'm working on, you may see some comic book art getting done. We're also ramping up production on a game for Skystorm Studios. So you may see some game development. You may see comic book artwork. There could be any number of things going on here. So as a studio, we're kind of involved in a lot of different stuff, and I just wanted to start taking kind of Monday morning to sort of let folks have a look inside what we're doing, and kind of share some stuff that way, and just hopefully it has some value to folks out there, and you get a kick out of it. A little look into what we're doing here. So anyway, till next week, have a good one. Thanks.